Brand nerds. It's summer 2026, Larry.
Love it.
All right, y'all. Summertime. Summertime. Shout, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
I'm
We
glad
know
you
you.
said Jazzy Jeff first because he doesn't get enough run, I think, sometimes. You know what I mean?
I agree. And that was actually the name of the group.
Right.
Yeah, it was Jazzy Jeff who was the
First.
DJ, who
Yeah.
was the primary. But brand nerds, we know you all are out and about during the summer. Hopefully, you're getting some vacation time, rest and relaxation. And while you're doing that, what Larry and I and the Brands Beats and Bytes family thought we would do is to share some of the best that we've ever done at Brands, Beats, and Bytes some episodes. So we're going to be remixing some things for the summer that we're going to point you to by resurfacing the best of Brands, Beats, and Bytes anytime, summertime.
That's right, D. Brand nerds, what DC and I are really saying is if you missed this episode the first time, you need to catch it this time. They are must see or listen, whichever you prefer. DC, please tell each brand nerd why this episode cannot be missed.
LT, ooh, no. This might be the best title that we've had in Brands, Beats, and Bytes history. The Art of Creative Violence. Oh no, broke it down. His company, Murder Hornet, the way they operate, as in the name, is like a swarm. Not like a regular agency, but like a newly constructed agency that brings swarms together to work on creative problems and murder them. Oh, y'all need to check out Noel's podcast. Brand nerds. Back at you. Brands, Beats, and Bytes podcast. You know what it is. Larry, I need to start this one with a thank you to all of our listeners in more than 100 countries. We really appreciate you guys listening to Brands, Beats, and Bytes. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys, so we're very appreciative. Which leads me to something when we talk about different countries. I'm a brand builder, but I have not built any brands in my entire life without a partner right next to me who is this. These are the great brands, the great projects. I've never been able to build one of those without a creative savant next to me. And in these situations, brand nerds, it hasn't been a competition of, well, the brand person must lead or the creative person must lead. It's always been a symbiotic kind of a relationship where I have respect for the creative chops. And by the way, brand nerds, I know you know this likely, but in case you didn't know, creatives are as good at strategy as you brand folks think you are. Okay, I know you try to put them in a box and say, "Oh, they're just creatives." They are as strategic as you are, and sometimes my chief creative officers out there, your brand folks can be as creative as you are. It works both ways. This next guest, LT, is one of the most advanced creative savants I have ever worked with. And when he and I met one another, literally straight away, we had not known each other before then. I knew of him, but I hadn't worked with him before on any project. Right away, we hit it off. It was like being in a room, and it wasn't that long. A couple comments go back and forth, and I'm thinking, who's that dude over there? Who's that? And dare I say, LT, I think he had a similar thing when he heard me talking and he and I were going back and forth. It was really interesting. Now back to my thing about origin stories. I'm going to get into this a bit more later. I had the life-altering experience of coming home for the first time in my life in 1996. And home for me is the continent of Africa. I'd never been to Africa before. And I arrive in 1996. For you boys and girls that are counting, that is 2 years after the legal end of apartheid. So this is 2 years. And when my feet hit the ground, even before then, we're flying in and we're flying into Cape Town. Brand nerds, if you've never flown into Cape Town, you must do this. You must be near a window in an aircraft and you must see this. I'm looking, Larry, as we're landing, and I see luscious water, wonderful sandy beaches, lush greenery, all in one cinematic sweeping view coming into Cape Town. When we land, I get off that plane. When my feet hit the ground, I knew I was home. I knew I was home in South Africa. An overwhelming feeling. I'm going on a little longer here because there's a connection to the South Africa piece that you're going to hear about a little later. Also, origin story, I'm walking down the street from one of the business meetings we were having to go to lunch, I think it was. And during that time, I would have been described in South Africa as colored, not black, but colored because of my complexion. I didn't know this, by the way, until I got to South Africa. And so we're walking to lunch, and then we get to lunch, and I noticed that the people I'm traveling with, it's like 5 or 6 of us, they're kind of checking me out as we're walking to lunch. I can tell they're kind of noticing something. I don't know what they're noticing. Larry, we get to lunch, and we're not even at the table yet, and they say, no one from South Africa thought you were South African. Yeah, no one thought you were colored, even though you would be colored here. And I was like, why? Because I look like I'm colored, don't I? They said, no. Because the way you were walking down the street, they were like, this dude has to be from America. He's bumping into everybody. He's not like giving way. This is all the stuff that was going on. Man, I had such a great time in South Africa. I'm arriving at a point, Larry. You know, my mom used to say this to me when I would drone on. She would say, baby, are you arriving at a point? Yes. I would say, yes, Mom, I'm arriving at a point. I'm arriving at a point. Our next guest not only understands commerce, he understands culture. He understands soul. And brand nerds, when you have an executive that understands both the value of commerce and culture, you're dealing with a beast that can do things that other people simply cannot do. LT, let the peoples know who we have in the building with us today, please.
DC, that's such a great setup. We have Noel Cottrell in the house today. Welcome, Noel.
Thanks so much, DC. Thank you for the flowers, and Larry, thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And Noel, I know you've talked to us about having listened to the show, so you know what's coming next. And we have to let the brand nerds, as we say, know who's in the building. So, okay, brand nerds, we have someone who is a legit creative giant in our industry, both domestically and internationally, having successfully started and sold creative agencies. Let's walk you through his backstory. And this is what DC was alluding to. A native of South Africa, Noel attends the University of Cape Town, earning a BA in English and psychology. After graduation, Noel is in London, and there is a great story behind Noel obtaining an unpaid internship with Saatchi & Saatchi in London. So I hope that comes out later, Noel. But while we believe folks should be paid for work, we also believe sometimes it's just about getting your foot in the door. This is what happens with Noel. After Saatchi, he then heads back to South Africa and takes a real job as a copywriter with Tholet Seaver and Associates, where he cuts his teeth on brands such as Goodyear, John Deere, and Smirnoff. He then earns an opportunity to join the Jupiter Drawing Room as a senior copywriter, working on brands such as Red Bull, Sissy Boy Jeans, I love this, the brand name of that, and Musica retail music stores. At this point, Noel has figured out as a creative person, he really has something to offer for clients, and he opens his own shop called Joe Public United, where they are a full-service communications agency and blow up the agency model completely, opening as a sort of a takeaway corner store where you could order advertising off a menu and they work with clients such as SA Breweries, USAID, and Siemens. Okay, it is now 2001, and this is the first time an agency Noel starts is purchased by a holding company. And Noel then becomes managing partner and chief creative officer for KBS, where he works with clients such as Cisco Systems, my team, the San Francisco Giants, and Diageo. Feels like Noel at his heart wants to do great creative, and he then heads back to South Africa, where he starts another agency, Fox P like Peter 2, Fox P2. The agency is named after the creativity gene in humans and is originally housed in a lab. Clients include Diageo, Coronation Asset Management, and Wonderbra. It is now 2005, and Noel sells the agency to Dentsu and moves back to the U.S., joining Gray Advertising as their executive creative director, working on key accounts such as Diageo, P&G, and E-Trade. Couple of key points to make here, brand nerds. Number one, not sure if you picked up on it, but this is the third agency Diageo followed Noel to. When clients obtain great work from a creative leader they trust, and this was what DC was alluding to, if they can, and sometimes politics, internal and external, won't allow it, but if they can, they follow great creatives like Noel wherever they go. Point number two, for E-Trade, Noel and his team develop and produce one of the most talked about Super Bowl ads of all time, dare I say, but certainly in 2008, with the Talking Babies, that is an uber success. Here's what we mean by success. On the Monday following the Super Bowl, E-Trade recorded more new account signups than any other single day in its history, and also had a 32% increase in newly opened and funded accounts in the week after the game. After the success at Gray, Noel joins Fitzgerald and Co. as their chief creative officer, where he spends 9 years working with many prominent clients, including our friends at Coca-Cola, Turner Broadcasting, and Sony Mobile, to name a few. He then moves on to VMLY&R as their chief creative officer. VMLY&R is a combination of global creative powers Wonderson Thompson and Y&R, back in the day known as Young and Rubicam. Key clients there include Wendy's, North Face, and Intel. Okay, Noel's entrepreneurial itch is ever present, and in 2023, he decides to upend the agency model once again, and he founds Murder Hornet, which is an advertising collective that swarms on client brands. Why Murder Hornet? Well, if discomfort is a catalyst for change, they build bespoke teams to swarm on solving problems. They call it creative violence. Discomfort means better work, more impact, and greater results. Comprised of a nest of full-time staff and a much larger swarm of partners, they are the creative agency for Fortune 100 company New York Life, Tazo and Lipton Teas, and Nando's Peri Peri Chicken in the U.S., just to name a few. They like to say creative violence solves everything, and has led them to be the Ad Age Small Agency of the Year in 2025. This is going to be a great one, brand nerds. Welcome to Brands, Beats, and Bytes, Noel Cottrell.
Thanks so much, Larry. It's the longer you went on, the more it's like, God damn, I'm old. It's like, I've been around for a minute. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. The amount of pride I felt in everything you're naming there is equally sort of like shaking my head at how long I've been doing this for. But I think if you got it, if it bites you, like I know with DC it did back in the day, like I don't know if it ever really leaves you. You're kind of like, people have said to me, like, if you thought of retiring, I'm like, I would like to never retire. I'd like to do this till they shuffle me off the earth. Like, I love doing what I do.
That's great.
It's funny you mentioned that, brother, because I was looking at success and how it's defined in terms of numbers. I won't have this exactly right, but some of the greats, Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra, who is considered to be one of the most iconic entertainers to have ever lived. Of his entire catalog of songs, 17% of them were hits. 17%.
Yeah.
The great Bambino. So we're talking about baseball royalty right here. New York Yankees. I know Boston and all that, but the New York time, he had 714 home runs before Henry Hammer and Hank Aaron broke his record. The percentage of his total hits that were home runs were in the single digits. single digits. The point here, Noel, that I'm agreeing with you here is that you don't have to do 1,000 great things. You just have to do a few great things and they stay with you forever, brother. And this is what you getting your flowers here. Now, you've done a lot of great things, but this is how one establishes a resume like yours, man. So congratulations on those flowers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Brand Nerds, a couple of things popped out that I got to bring you back to in the flowers that Noel got before we get to the Get Comfy section. The first one is this. If y'all have never tried Nando's Peri Peri chicken, you are cheating yourself out of one of life's great joys. I've not been to a Nando's here in the U.S., but I've been to several Nando's in South Africa. And the first time that I
had in the UK too.
Yeah, in the UK. But I tried it in South Africa. Thank you, Larry. That shit was so good, I was ready to slap somebody. I mean, I just could not believe how good this chicken was. And then, speaking of the UK, I've had Nando's in the UK, but there's another kind of smaller, big now, but high-quality chicken place. It's called The Chicken Shop. The Chicken Shop in London. Equally good. Well, not equally good. Kind of almost there, more smoke. But Nando's Peri Peri chicken, you guys need to try that wherever it is. But I digress. I'm going to the Get Comfy section. Before I ask this question to you, Noel, I said earlier I like origin stories. I also really appreciate the rhythm of the universe. So I gave the origin story of how Noel and I met. Now let me get to the rhythm of the universe. Unbeknownst to Noel or I, both of us had daughters that were at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design School, Atlanta campus. I didn't know he had a daughter there. She's called Sasha. He didn't know I had a daughter there. She's called Lauren. So we find out that our daughters are in the same school and I think the same majors. Right? Yeah. Not only that, we find out they're besties. Okay, they're besties. We had no idea that this was happening, but it kind of shows the rhythm of the universe and the origin of our relationship, and then the origin of both Sasha and Lauren's relationship. But I want to go to another part of an origin story. I didn't know anything about brand management until business partner and best friend Jeff Shirley called me from business school, Noel, and said, hey, man, I just heard about this thing called brand management. You need to get your ass in the school and start working on brand management. I didn't know what it was. That's how I got into brand management. But I think your origin story is a little better about how you got into advertising. No, please share. Please share.
Thank you. Thanks, DC. Yeah, mine was pretty weird. I had an English and psychology degree, as Larry had mentioned, and I was working in London, but I had like 16 jobs. I was playing semi-professional basketball. I was bouncing at the Hippodrome and the Empire nightclubs. I was like working as a lifeguard. I was like working for the Big Pan catering company at the Earl's Court Motor Show. I had 20 jobs and I was just hustling. But I'd met a woman who became my girlfriend, who was an au pair for the Saatchis, and I'd never even heard of advertising. And when we decided to go back to South Africa, she was like, they really want to meet you. I've obviously spoken you up and everything. So they invited me for dinner, and I got to go sit there. And it's the kind of the story that's a bit fuzzy is I don't remember which brother it was or exactly how that worked. But they were like, the girl's name was Angela, and she said to me, Noel's got an English and psychology degree, and they were like, oh, what are you doing with it? Have you ever thought of being a copywriter? And I was like, well, I don't have any legal background, thinking like copywriting was something that you did,
Oh,
legal
yeah,
work.
yeah, okay, yeah.
And so they were like, well, we own an agency called Saatchi & Saatchi in London. And they were like, if you want to just come and like walk around and sit in there and see what it's about. So the next day I went in and I walked in, and it was almost immediately like a love story. I walked in and the one office had been painted green, and they were doing work for the Penn tennis balls account. And there were two two 30-year-old kids in there, like with like hitting a tennis ball against the wall, like dressed up in tennis gear. And then they were like, "Hey, it's almost lunchtime. You want to come with us?" And we hopped in a Porsche and went to the local like steakhouse and had a steak. And by the time I got back, I was like, "I'm definitely doing this job. Whatever this is, I'm doing this." So I kind of like the other fun part was I was there illegally, working illegally, as pretty much most people did. A lot of South Africans traveling to the UK at the time. And what was interesting was, so I worked there for like a month and a half, and they kept asking me for my equivalent to my social security number. And I just kept telling them like, "Oh, I left it at home. I'll get it next time. I'll get it next time." And by the time I left, I had like two ads in my book, and I went back to South Africa, and I was like, "I worked at such and such, and here's my ads." And I was like, they were kind of spec ads, but anyway, it was just like kind of falling into it, a lot of fun.
I love that story. So, do you mind if I ask a follow up?
Please, brother.
So Noel, so you had all these odd jobs, you're bouncing, you're playing basketball, you're doing all these things. So were you at the time were you thinking, man, what am I going to do with my life? Or were you just living life and things are just, you're going to catch whatever wave you're going to be on?
I think it was the latter. Really, I didn't have many plans. I was just having a lot of fun and making pounds as opposed
Right.
to rands, which is like I think it was a 20-1 at the time. I was like
Right.
stacking pounds and just having a good time. So, and I think I was in my early 20s. So just kind of, I always say to Sasha and Lauren, who always like really keen, my daughters who are keen to get on with their careers and are worried about their careers. I'm like, you got a few years, just
Yeah.
have some fun early.
Yeah, brand nerds. We all know the agency Saatchi now, and we've known them to be a great agency for decades. But when when Noel heard about them, they were big then, but they weren't as big as they ultimately became. In the U.S. Context, it would be as if 30 some odd years ago, 40 years ago, whatever the count is, if someone were an au pair to Ogilvy, David Ogilvy, and they say, "Go and talk to Ogilvy. Ogilvy wants to meet you." It'd be like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is like nuts.
It is.
That's nuts, no. So no, after you got in, and they're like, "Yeah, come on and do." After you had your steak and your, I would imagine martini, but if you're in the UK, it might have been a pint. I'm not sure, but either one does. When you had your first understanding of what a copywriter did, what was that moment for you?
I mean, honestly, like the guys took me back to the office after a few pints, you're correct. And they were showing me kind of some of the ads they were working on that they had stuck up on the wall. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this entire industry even existed. And I always had a flair for writing. I'd done really well in English in college. And I also, to your point earlier, DC, kind of had like a bit of a, I could put stuff together. It wasn't just a writer. I kind of had a bit more to it. So when I saw that, it was like commerce plus like English language. I was like, hey, this could be really great. So it really bit me. And even they'd give me briefs. I'd go in, they'd give me briefs, and I would work on them. And I'd come up with ads, and I'd scroll up little ads, and go to the photocopy machine and cut out things and create things. And this is way before computers, which is really dating me. So it's like, like kind of like, and I had a little book. By the time I got back to South Africa, I had a little case that I carried around with my favorite ads I'd done at Saatchi. And so, just kind of, but I really got hooked. I really got hooked by, and as someone who'd played competitive sport, it was pretty much as close as I could come to sport as well. It was that feeling of competition, that feeling of like winning, that feeling of like doing something. There was definitely, it felt like it was analogous to like playing competitive sport. You're in a team and you're working as a team and you're pitching and winning or losing. And it was definitely like, I definitely got a little bit of that, the buzz that I got from playing sport. I got a little bit of a buzz I got the same buzz from advertising, and I still do.
And it's interesting too, D, what he's done with with his most recent incarnation, Murder Hornet, because that's bringing people together, like all kinds of different people, the swarms, right? And so you can see the true line from playing sports. I did too, Noel, and it's that there's something about being on a team and coming together and succeeding as a team that's sort of incomparable in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is well said, no, about the correlation of what you do and what we do largely in our business, but especially on the side of agencies and firms and consulting practices, but also on the client side, the correlation to sport. That's really good.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. It reminds me of a quote. I don't have this quote down exactly, but I'll try to come close and paraphrase it. That speaks to what you recognized in the moment when you were at Saatchi and Saatchi. And the quote goes something like this: "It's one thing to have an opportunity presented to you. It's another thing to recognize that that opportunity is happening and you better do something with it." That's not the exact quote, but that's what you did.
Yeah.
You, from the moment you saw that green wall, them hitting balls up against the wall in their Wimbledon gear. Once they had all of that on, and you saw that I'm gonna imagine it was a 911 Porsche, probably a 911. You see this 911 Porsche, and we're talking. What year was this? I don't want to date you, but what year was this?
It was the 90s, so I couldn't put it on an exact year, but it was a beautiful time to be in advertising.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now just Brandon, there's one other thing, then we'll move on. In the 90s, well, back up a second. There are car companies that are known for the name brand of their car company, like Ferrari or Bentley or Bugatti, and Porsche's one of them, Mercedes. And then there are cars that have a model that is on its own a 911. The Porsche 911 is such a model. You could go around the world and draw with a pen the shape of a 911 and ask someone, what car is this? They would say this is a Porsche. There's no other car in the world where you can do that. Within the world of Porsche and 911s, there are variants. So these are the different types of Porsches that they make throughout the years. When Noel was hopping in the car, he might have been in what's called a 993. They made this car from 1994, but a 95 model, to 1998. It is considered to be peak Porsche, one of the most beautiful cars ever made. So this dude is getting, as a 20-something-year-old, is getting into one of those cars. Oh boy, I recognize this opportunity. I'm taking advantage of it. That's nice.
I remember it was chocolate brown. That's all I remember about it. Like the exterior was like chocolate brown. I was like, this is like, I'd never even seen a brown car before. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Ooh. All right. We will move on to 5 questions. And Larry and I go back and forth, until we arrive at 5. I'm up first. I'm curious about, Larry, his answer to this question. I'm very curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, what was the first experience you had with a brand that lit your soul afire, that you just could not spend enough time with it? You couldn't like covet it more. You thought you were engaged with it maybe for 15 minutes and you were engaged with it for an hour or had it on for an hour. It just brought you so much joy, like a first love. What was that for you?
It's kind of interesting because Larry had mentioned Sissy Boy Jeans up front when he was going through my resume. Sissy Boy Jeans was the first time I worked on a brand that I felt like that. So I joined the Jupiter Drawing Room after about 3 successful years at my first job. So Jupiter Drawing Room was my second job. And I had 2 great mentors there, Ross Charles, Kevin Aspos, who passed. But like great mentors, and they put me with a killer art director and designer. Her name was Joanne Thomas, and they gave us this brand, Sissy Boy Jeans, which was a female-only jean. So as a 6'8", 300-pound guy, you can imagine this is a weird first jean to fall, or first brand to fall in love with. But the brand had this amazing guy called Ronald Sassoon as the owner of the brand and the CMO, and he was the bravest guy you will ever meet. And so, and actually, I might be getting his name wrong because Ronald Sassoon was the brand, was the anyway. I mean, I might be getting his name wrong, but the owner of the brand who started it, he was incredible because he gave us literally as much rope as he wanted. So we came up with a tagline for a woman's pair of jeans and the tagline was "Sissy Boy Jeans, wear the pants." And there were, and then what
Say
we
that
did
again.
was,
Say that
yeah,
again. That's so good.
Sissy Boy Jeans, wear the pants. And the first ad we did for them, which I did for them with my partner Joanne, was we did all the Kama Sutra positions as a double-page spread where the woman was on top. And then it was Sissy Boy Jeans, wear the pants. And obviously that caused a huge stir. It was a double-page spread in Cosmopolitan magazine. And then, then when that took off and we got so much press for it, there was so much buzz around it that we were like, all right, what do we do next? And so we landed up doing something. There was a huge drug problem in South Africa. We did a sort of a woman's take on that. And then most famously, in my third year there, South Africa, and again, these are all weird things about South Africa. One of the weird things about South Africa was pornography was banned in South Africa. So you were not allowed to have any pornography. And then when they unbanned pornography in South Africa that year, all these women's magazines flooded the country, all the external, the Playboys and the fact that I can't name any others is probably good. But there were a whole bunch of them flooded the country. And as Sissy Boy Jeans, we kind of had this moment where we realized that there was no pornography for women. So we shot a 4-page fold out of a guy naked and said, there are currently 250 pornography magazines that have just launched in this country. None of them are for women. And you open it up and there was a fully naked guy. And it said and it was like, Sissy Boy, wear the pants. And what we didn't reckon with was that they ripped all those magazines off the shelves because it was a 4-page fold out in Cosmopolitan, and the pornography magazines had to be wrapped in plastic. So they ripped they had to rip all the magazines off the shelves, and we had bomb threats. We literally came to work one day and there was like spray paint in the elevator saying like, today's the day you all die. And from very conservative things. And so it was kind of interesting. I talked today about creative violence at Murder Hornet. Like that was the first time where I saw the real impact that creative violence can have. Like when you go, all right, it's a brand and we're gonna do some crazy stuff. We've got a client who's willing to go there. It's a fashion brand, so it's also not like, how bad can you make it? And I think also just the fact that we were pro-woman and we were calling out like pro-woman stuff really I will say that I've been married for 27 years. My wife would argue that this is not the reason she married me, but she married me. Her and I met the year that I was doing the Sissy Boy Jeans centerfold ad, and I met her in a club and she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a creative person." She says, "Is there any ad I've ever seen that you've done?" And I said, "The Sissy Boy naked guy." And she was like, and literally she came, we went out on a date that night, and then we've been together for 27 years. I attribute that ad to to my relationship and having built a family with 2 girls. So it's like kind of that brand is still like front and center in my heart. Like such a huge part of my life,
Noel, don't doubt yourself. I just looked it up. Ronald Sassoon was the founder of
Oh my gosh.
Sissy Boy. So I just looked that up according to my Google search. And I think maybe where you got caught up, there used to be a brand back in the day called Sassoon. So
that's why I thought to myself, could it have been the same thing?
Same, spelled the same. But no, that was Ronald Sassoon in the 80s in South Africa. So you were right.
Yeah, and actually, a friend of mine who was my creative director at the time, is now lecturing at Michigan State. He's a lecturer, he lectures marketing there, and he was my chief creative officer at the time when we did that work. And he actually asked me to send him the ads the other day, and I sent them to him. And actually, the Drum asked me recently for the 5 most important ads I'd ever done, and I sent them the Sissy Boy naked centerfold ad. So it's still floating around in the ether.
You know what? For all the reasons you just stated, it is. It's probably it should be number one, even with your great success.
It is
with E-Trade and whatnot. So yeah, that's awesome.
I got a question for you, Noel.
Yeah.
The centerfold ad that came after the Kama Sutra. So
Yes.
you did the Kama Sutra first. So this is the first time that you all are sharing your thoughts with Robert. Is it Robert Sassoon? Robert or
Ronald? Yeah.
Ronald Sassoon. All right. What's that meeting like? You're coming in here with something that's like, it's kind of out there, Noel. What's that first meeting like with him and his team?
I will tell you that he was the bravest client I've met before and after. The brief was like shock and awe. Like, just do something that's going to really put this tiny brand on the map. And we presented a lot of work, and he was all about it. He was like, get me banned, get me thrown off the shelves, get me like. That was a lot of fun. Having that open a brief early in your career.
Rare.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, rare. Cool. Larry, any more from you before the next question?
Nope. Ready to go to the next question. Okay. You alluded to it, but let's go direct with this question, Noel. Whose hatter is having the most influence on your career?
She's going to be embarrassed because she's sitting in the office here, and I'm going to have to pull her over to say hello for a second.
Pull her over. Bring her over.
Come on over. Just come. She's not going to have sound, so she's just going to come on. She's just going to come put her head in. This is Alex, my partner and the president at Murder Hornet. And the question I thought about it last night because I asked was like, who's the person who's currently having the most impact on your career? And it's Alex. I started an agency at the tender age of 56, 57, and was looking for someone to help me on the account management side. And Alex came over and we started Murder Hornet, just the two of us in a little 2-person area. And just watching her like grow insanely from, sort of a senior account person at Tombras to joining me to helping land all these giant accounts and do what we're doing with Murder Hornet and growing it the way we've grown it and everything. It's funny, I don't know what I'm more proud of, like our accomplishment of being Ad Age's Small Agents of the Year last year, or Alex being on the Forbes 30 under 30 this year, which is a huge accomplishment for someone. She actually turned 30 at the same time. I think it's really cool. It's been energizing for me, like kind of when you get to the back nine of your career, as they say in golf. It's sort of like you think to yourself, like, no, there's a comfort in sort of choosing other people who look like you or feel like you or are like you to do your work with together. But there was definitely something about Alex that made me think like, this could be something bigger and different, and I could build something with her for the future. And even now, like looking forward to the future of the agency, the hires we're making and the people we're building, and that are so like we're building it for the future, and we're building the systems for the future. And it's not like my last hurrah. It feels like it's her first hurrah. So it feels there's something really great about that that synergy, and also I mean, I know it's supposed to be like this, but my strengths are her weaknesses and her weaknesses are my strengths. That sounded wrong. I think I screwed that up. But anyway, she has strengths that I don't have, and I have strengths that she doesn't have, and it works really well together. And we do things like we have onboarding documents, and we have we like for an agency of 10 or 12 people, we are very organized. So I would say that there've been people throughout my career, Tom Myron at Gray, who went on to be the CMO of Apple, still is the CMO of Apple. Like, he was one of the guys that, I mean, he did the original E-Trade work. We did it. He was the CCO at the time. And I've got a lot of like great people who've influenced my career. But I would say like someone right now who's influencing my career the most is Alex. Sorry, Alex.
I love that. Alex McInnes, right? Alex last name?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. D, I love this because so often, and it just shows Noel's way of thinking. And you just alluded to it. You've had great mentors, you've had great folks who have helped you along the way. And I love the present future orientation of you saying Alex. And it just shows what you guys are doing with Murder Hornet and all the wonderful things that you have right now, present, and then coming. So it's such, we've never had an answer like that, D. I can't remember an
Never,
answer like that, right?
Yay.
never.
Glad it feels original.
For sure.
Larry, we have invoked this many times. We're going to invoke it again. Who's that world famous basketball coach? UCLA, rest in peace. What's his name and what's the quote?
Mr. John Wooden, we can't say this enough. No, we love this quote. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
That's you, Noel.
Thank you.
Yeah, what you have now built with Alex is you saying, "Yeah, Alex, I've been in the game for a while," and you said that listening to your experience being played back to you. Yet, at the same time, I've got a lot more to learn. And
Yes.
you,
Oh, hell
Alex,
yeah.
can teach me from a completely different perspective. There are not many that would do that. They would go, let me tell you, youngin, how it should be. That's
Yeah.
not what you've done. That's impressive, man. That's impressive.
No. Thank you. It's she's impressive, so it's great.
Cool.
All right, D, ready to go to the next question?
I am. You have a long and storied background. You have many successes, much to be proud of, much that you've done to actually change our industry. This next question has not a thing to do with any one of those wins. This next question, no, has to do with the largest fuck up, the largest F up you've experienced in your career. Not one that you could point to someone else. My boss made us do this. The client made it. It's your F up. And more important than naming the F up, what did you learn from it?
This is going to be an emotional one because it involves a once great friend of mine. His name's Dave Fitzgerald. DC, you might
Yeah. Yep.
know Dave Fitzgerald, the founder of the agency Fitzgerald and Company in Atlanta. And Dave took a chance on me. I was a young, hot copywriter, ECD copywriter coming out of New York, having just done like some famous work for E-Trade and Febreze. And, he took a chance on me to come down and be a CCO and welcomed me with open arms. I can't tell you, when I arrived, I came up the elevator, there was a sign that said, "Welcome home, Noel." And he made me feel at home every day. And he gave me as much rope as I needed to turn that into a great agency creatively. Like I hired the best people. He allowed me to get rid of the people, even though they'd been with him for 20 years, that maybe weren't right, and hire the people I wanted to hire. He gave me carte blanche of the clients, gave me carte blanche of the work. He sponsored everything. He could not have been better, could not have been a better partner, boss, whatever you want to call it, to me. And then there was a really he was kind of in the twilight of his career, probably a little older than I am now. And we had some real success with Coca-Cola. We grew that from a tiny account to be a very big account. And suddenly McCann Erickson at the time, McCann now, got very, very, very involved with the day-to-day running of everything because they saw the traction that we had on Coca-Cola. So they came down one day, and this is my biggest mistake of my life, is they said that they were going to swap Dave out as president and owner and CEO of the company. And they were going to install a sort of a Coke team that were going to run the agency because we were kind of like Coke head office. This has nothing to do with an amazing guy that they brought to put in Dave's place. But the trust and everything I built with Dave, the relationship I had with him and his family and spending time at his lake house and doing all that stuff, I didn't feel I had a choice in that moment to say yes to McCann. I couldn't say no to them. They were doing this. And they kind of made Dave they made him a sort of like almost like president. What's the word?
Emeritus.
Emeritus.
emeritus, where you stand up and you present the
Yeah.
Davy Award once a month, and the rest of the time you get to not have any involvement in the agency you built for 30 years. And I was part of that, and I was complicit in that. And for a couple of years, it worked for me, and it worked for Coke, and it worked for McCann. And then, as the cycle of advertising goes, it didn't anymore for McCann, and we lost a big account. It wasn't Coke, it was another big account, maybe Federal Credit Union. And then they decided that that Dave could buy the agency back. And Dave bought the agency back from them and summarily, as he should, got rid of all the people that had deposed
Oh yeah.
him 5 years earlier.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was on that list of people that went, and I've not spoken to Dave since then. And I wanted to take this opportunity to apologize to him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm.
And say, I couldn't be sorrier. I really am. Uh, yeah, I have reached out once or twice to go for a steak at Bones, but it hasn't happened. But I want it. I want to apologize in person.
Larry, you have thoughts, I have thoughts.
Please go first.
We are approaching 200 of Brands, Beats, and Bytes podcast. And this might be the best answer that I've heard to this question. I have a history with Dave. I met Dave in 2000, I think. I was running all of advertising for North America, national and regional. The person that worked for me, that worked with Dave and Fitzgerald, was Becky Rodzik. Becky Rodzik, really good Coca-Cola person. So I met, and at this time, our regional and local work, most done with the bottlers, was led by Fitzgerald. I witnessed the firm go from that to one of the major players on the roster for the Coca-Cola company and on the roster for others. He is a good man. You know that. Yeah, he is a really good man. And what I found him to be unique at is, I don't know whether it's this way now, but I can tell you it was this way then. Coca-Cola had perhaps the most accomplished roster of agencies in the world back then. It was a political viper's nest, literally. Dave never played those games. He never, ever played those games. I'm saying all this to say the following. Dave and I are not friends, but we know one another. And what I'm going to do, Noel, is I'm going to call him and personally ask him to listen to this podcast. And then I'm going to say to him, I want to talk to you after you listen to the podcast. And I'm going to say to him, I'll say it to him now in case he's like, Dave, it's been a minute. You know it's been a minute, brother. And you know we've done a lot of business together, a lot of business. I'm not suggesting that's the reason why you should do this. We've done a lot of business together. Becky, you, and me. Go to Bones with Noel. Let's go to Bones. Have your say. Let him have his say. Take it from there. That's it. Larry?
Thanks, TC.
You're welcome, brother.
No, thanks so much for sharing that. And, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about people. It's just about people and the connections that we have with people. And the way you described that story, it seems like that really, it was caught everyone off guard with what McCann was doing, because of their ownership stake with Fitzgerald and whatnot. And you're not expecting that. And sometimes in the moment, we all sort of, what do we do now? And it's really difficult to think about what you do in moments like that when it's really shocking and when it actually does impact everything that you do on a human level. And so I would say to you, give yourself some forgiveness on it as well, because I think if you had given the opportunity and the grace to having thought about it, you probably would have acted quite differently. So again, I think you need to give yourself the forgiveness on that. And ultimately it's about people, and as DC just will be the catalyst for it. I'm quite sure that you and Dave will reconnect, and that'll be an awesome thing, and be great for humankind. And then brand nerds, the thing here is it's all about people and forgiveness. We all do things that in retrospect in different moments we would redo, but we can't redo it. But you can express forgiveness, and unfortunately in society today, that's something that's seen as weakness. DC and I don't. We own our F ups all the time. We apologize to each other almost all the time but that's the way you conduct yourself. You can look yourself in the mirror, and clearly you can, Noel. So kudos to you for expressing all this today.
No, I'm good.
I'd like to say one thing, but no, did you want to say anything before I say this final thing?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
It's all you.
Brand nerds, this is complicated. Being on the client side for many years, and then also working with clients on the other side, and also managing a roster of the world's best agencies, I can tell you the way that it goes down, a situation like this. If I said, and I didn't, I don't think I've done this. Somebody might say, oh, no, yes, you did do this, DC. I don't think I've done this when I was on the client side. But if I said on the client side, I want to work with this, I'll continue working with this agency. But this woman or man needs to be out 100 out of 100 times. That person is out. There is no ongoing conversation. There is none of that. There is, we are making this decision now because we have been requested to do so. So that's how it goes down. Now let's just say that if someone else who was not the person that I said as the client or the owner, I want out, if someone else that worked for that person said, well, if she's out, I'm out, I would say, don't let the doorknob hit you when a good Lord split you. They'd be out. That's the way it works. There is no like, oh, maybe if 2 or 3 of us had said no, they would have reversed the decision. That was not going to happen, brand nerds. That's not how this game works. It just doesn't work. It's a cold, cold game. I just needed to state that for the record. Just need to state it.
Okay. I will say, I think the one last thing on that to close the chapter on that is, I do think that, in that moment, there was a lot of ego involved. There's a lot of me thinking a lot of myself and thinking like, this whole Coca-Cola account it's all about me and it's me and I'm, they're building this team. It's about me. And I didn't really think about Dave in that moment. And I should have. And I do think it is easy to look back at your career and be like, where I screwed up, like, how could I have done it differently? And again, I think if I went back, I would really try to have done it differently, but I don't know me in that moment, like whether I would have done it. Like, I mean, I would love to have done it differently now, but like, I can't imagine a scenario there where I would have resigned or like or like, I'm not sure what I would have done, but I should definitely have stood up more and fought it more, and being more like, I think that the way it was handled was terrible. And so anyway, well, but DC, I appreciate the offer. And I did text Dave recently when he retired, and I said to him, I'd love to take him for lunch. And my first word out of my mouth would be, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to, I still would love to do that with him. And I know he's still got a table at Bones.
No doubt.
We're going to go to the next question, but
Yeah.
I want just to put the exclamation point on this. Dare I say, Noel, the way you've described that, you've never done anything like that again. If you've been in a situation where it's where you feel compromised with someone who you feel really close to, that you're just not going to do that. So Again,
Absolutely.
Brand, that's the key there. Okay, next question. Regarding technology and marketing, you have seen a lot, Noel. Can you tell us where you think marketers should lean in or best leverage tech? Or you can take us to an area or areas that you think they should be leery or simply avoid. What say you?
It's kind of interesting. Our model, not to talk too much about Murder Hornet, but we have a nest and a swarm model. Like I'm just looking up at our nest.
That's great.
We have a nest and a swarm model, and the nest are the 12 or so people who work and come into work every day at Murder Hornet. And then we have a swarm of 1,000 people that have subscribed and signed up to be part of our swarm. And those are teams that we kind of create, bespoke teams for different things. And really, that's where I think, if I look at why we've done it, is twofold. The one reason is because it's more flexible for clients. Clients can choose teams, flex teams, like shrink a team, change a team, was often impossible to do with a more rigid agency structure. And then the second reason we do it is to protect ourselves, because this industry, as you both know, is like one of like, hire 50 people because you want a big account. Fire 50 people because that account
Right.
just walked out the door a year later. So, we talk about the nest and then having a swarm that can kind of like expand and contract, but try and protect the nest in the middle. And right now, the most exciting stuff that we're working on is how do we integrate AI to make that thing work so much better? And again, I can say the two letters AI, and I'm pretty sure I understand what a AI agent or agentic sort of advertising, like a sort of agent, AI agent is. And we're working across the board to integrate AI into our workflows, into choosing our swarms, into like how we work with our clients, and then even into production. A year and a half, 2 years ago, one of our clients came to us and said, we think we can knock $300,000 off the bottom line here. Like, when I say the bottom line, what we're paying you to do these big shoots every year, if we could do it with AI. And we didn't blink. We were like, sure, like let's try it. And that same client just signed for their third year with us. And one of the reasons I gave was like, you're saving us so much money doing work using AI. And then even, our account people are so much better and so much more efficient now that they're using all these AI agents and, summaries and all that stuff. And it is interesting because it's not just on the creative side. I think we're all scared, excuse the expression, shitless of AI and what it's going to do to our industry creatively. But I think the way we're looking at it is, I want to create an AI agent that after we've done like 1,000 jobs, I can go and say, this is the brief. I need to create a team based on our 1,000-person swarm. I need the budget to be this. I need timing to be this, and I need this to be the thing. And they will spit out the 5-person team that is perfect for that job, who has availability, how much they're going to cost, and what the deliverables and timings are going to be, and then build out a timeline for me. And a lot of that stuff is where it's getting super, super, super exciting for a small agency that's trying to come up with a new model. Again, we're not 1,000-person like mega shop, but the AI is really the fear of AI and what it can do is outweighed by the benefit of what it's doing for us right now. So, that is the most exciting part for us. I mean, I've been all the way. I said earlier when we were chatting that my first ads, I didn't have a computer. Like literally, there was no such a thing. It was like, you're drawing things and doing letter set and cutting out things and photostatting things. And now we're at a stage where we've got AI agents like creating teams for us. So I think you just got to lean into it. There's a few people that I follow and who write about this stuff, and I think that you've kind of got to lean into each of these things. I mean, a year or two ago it was what was it, the metaverse, and then before that it's like crypto was everything, and there were like all these moments of like where oh, we're all going to be dead from this, or we've got to lean into we've all got to build a world in and we're all going to build all these like weird worlds in the metaverse, and then it's gone. But I think you've kind of got to lean into each one of these, because you take something from each one of these things. Like as you go, okay, so what is the metaverse? What did that become now? Kind of like what is the new metaverse? Or those are exciting things for me. It's just sort of like what can you take from these fads, and you got to kind of lean into them, and then it might pass, but there's also going to be moments left behind where you go, all right, so metaverses became, sort of agentic AI. It's like kind of like,
Right.
there's like these different little things. And now we're just dreaming of what the future could be. And it's super exciting.
I love this. D, any response to Noel? My quick thing is, Noel, DC and I on the show and then off the show, like AI is ever present. And, I think a lot of this is the way people look at life. And we are, uh, I'll speak for both of us here, D. We are both very hopeful people. We don't live life from fear. And so when you come from that orientation, those are the people that tend to lean in. And I
Yeah.
think about even DC, think about we were exposed to even before open AI happened. Datanautics, who's been a great partner of ours, Sanjay Patel. If you ever need some great research that's AI driven, they're incredible, by the way. Great shout out to Sanjay. And that was closed AI. They do this incredible research, and so research has to be closed. You don't want it to be open to the world. So that's where I first started. Oh, this is what this AI thing is about. And then when open AI happened, DC and I were like, well, let's take a look. And it's helped us in immeasurable ways, in so many ways. And we're true leaning in. Another great friend of ours, Ed Collins, Firebase Studios. I don't know if are you familiar with them?
No.
No, you should be, because they do all kinds of, you name a voice, intonation, language, whatever, all AI driven, and and they pay actors and whatnot. They're not going around. So we're just so leaned into this thing, and brand nerds, that's what Noel is saying, that's what DC and I are saying. You can't lean in enough to this. You can't have doubt about this. You got to jump in all the way. And even to the trends, like Noel said, the metaverse and whatnot, even if it's something that is yesterday's news, you learn from it. You learn from it. D,
Yeah.
anything else to add before we go to next question?
One thing. We first heard of AI as artificial intelligence. Then there is, and Noel, I think I heard you say this, there is AGI, artificial general intelligence. There's also an ASI, artificial super intelligence. And artificial super intelligence, this is where technology exceeds, this is what they say, exceeds human intelligence. This is when the machines are supposed to go ahead of human intelligence. And I'm not completely convinced that is going to happen. It is predicted to happen, but I'm not totally convinced it's going to happen. And here's the reason why. Before AI was created, it took a human to create it. Back in 2005, there was a young dude who had started a company in technology, later picked up by Y Combinator, and it was called Looped, Loopt. It was one of the first location-based pieces of technology for mobile phones. So we're going back 21 years ago, where one could let someone else know where they were. And back then, there was this fear of creepiness of, people have stalkers, that kind of thing. But this particular company, led by a CEO, thought that it was worthy technology. He also knew that he needed marketing and a place to nest the technology. And it was on mobile devices. The deal was done between Looped, Loopt, and Boost Mobile. And our tagline at the time was, "Where you at?" And it was Boost and Looped. And we did a whole marketing campaign behind it. Neil Lindsay and his team, Craig Tolley, they initiated this deal with this young dude who was in his 20s. The guy's name is Sam Altman. That's his name.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his name. I mentioned Sam Altman is because he, as most of the brand nerds know, head of OpenAI was bounced. Microsoft says no, brings him back, even more power. It took him, Sam Altman, and a team of people to come up with AI. I believe that even with artificial super intelligence, there's still got to be some humans
I agree.
coding this thing. I believe that. So that's my takeaway.
Love that.
Yep.
All right.
You're saying there's a chance we might survive, DC.
There's a outside chance we might survive. Yes.
This is great. All right, D, we ready to move to the next section?
Let's do it.
All right. D, what's popping? What's popping, Noel?
Yeah.
This is just a quick intro. It's our chance to shout out, shout down, or simply have something happening in and around marketing today we think is good fodder for discussion. You have a great topic. Hit us with it, please.
So for the last 50 years in advertising, it's been the holding companies moment. It's been the big companies, the big agencies, and those big brands that, DC, you mentioned some of them earlier, the J. Walter Thompsons, the Ogilvies, all the big companies have all been, those big brands that have been around since the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and the model has been very similar for a very long time. I would say in the last 2 years, we've seen that fall apart. I mean, I say that we've seen the thought of a BBDO and an FCB being in the same holding company, the fact that they've killed so many of the brands, the gray advertising is gone. A lot of the big name brands are gone, and even FCB is gone. I mean, it's Foot Cone Belding was this massive brand. It was one of the agencies of the year last year at Cannes. They're rationalizing the fact that WPP is about to launch WPP Creative. It's going to kill all the agency brands, and it's going to be just WPP Creative. And they're these big holding companies are firing every round. It's 3,000-4,000 people who are being laid off, and it's creating this kind of gig economy of all these freelancers. And we're kind of here to catch the freelancers in our swarm, that 1,000-person swarm, which is growing every day, and then trying to come up with more flexible, different models that save our agency, unlike what's happening on the other side, and then also trying to save clients, because clients are the reason those things are shrinking. Is because the clients aren't spending as much money. The clients are spending a lot of money, for example, with the influencers or with other, sort of. A good example is I saw a budget the other day, and our production budget was, I'll just make these numbers up, 200,000, and the influencer who was on it was 2 million. And that's for television versus influencer. I was like, what? And I was like, what is it? The influencer just has to pick up their phone and record themselves. It's it costs them nothing. I have to produce an entire campaign for this. So it's kind of, we're in this new world, and I think the agencies are just sort of cutting, and we're kind of looking for the next thing. And I think it is the indies. If you look around for the first time, a lot of the award shows, the ad award shows, the One Club is doing an indie award show this year for the first time. I'm judging it. There's also Cannes, there's cheaper entry fees, there's cheaper things for the indies, because they realize this is coming. It's not even just coming, it's there. You look at the Super Bowl, agencies like High Dive doing 2 or 3 TV commercials, and they're the best ones, or Eric and Coleman doing two or three TV commercials, Super Bowl TV commercials. These are just guys who
artist equity.
Yeah, and they're coming out of nowhere and just doing this great work. And it's no longer just the Sissy Boy Jeans who are looking for a small agency to do some crazy creative. It's big clients. It's Lipton and Tazo. We're their agency of record for North America. It's kind of, and we're 12 people with a 1,000-person swarm. I think that the whole holding company model, it's kind of interesting because we sit in a building that is we're in the 3rd level and WPP is above us in our building.
Oh, wow.
So we've put our little hornet's nest right up underneath them. So it's kind of it's fun to watch everyone scrambling to rearrange the deck chairs on the holding company Titanic. while all these indies are blown up and can't like mischief at no fixed address and like who are really like having great like success against the holding company model. And I think it's just pivoting quickly and trying to reinvent a model and do something different, because I do think the end is coming for like the big like 3 martini lunch, like kind of
Right.
like those giant productions, and the little like suddenly people are giving us $41,000 to do a TV commercial, and you're like, in the old days you'd be like, that's not the hotel budget. What are you talking about? Now we're like, all right, so how are we going to do this? How are we going to make it happen? How are we going to?
Yeah.
And then like we want 10 posts, like social posts for it, and we need like in-store and digital, and we need like X amount of stuff. And it's 41,000. We're like, okay, we're going to make some money on that. We've got to pay people to do it, and we've got to do it. But if you don't know how to do that, you're dead. You're dead in the water, because, and then obviously you'll still get the bigger ones where you've got $2.5 million TV budget, but those are rarer and rarer in today's environment, So I would say that what's happening with the holding companies and like the consolidation and killing of all the brands and pushing them into like a small ball, and then just all the people who are falling out of that. I mean, if you're on LinkedIn right now, like it's a bloodbath out there. Like, the people like, sort of leaving the jobs every day. It's kind of in our industry. But I do think that we're going to have to, as a group of people, we're all going to have to, find what's next, and, find what's next for all these people. And I do think that, creating your own thing and doing your own DIY and becoming an influencer, I know he's a controversial figure, but Gary V of VaynerMedia, like Gary Vaynerchuk, like I love what he's preaching, about like just get out there, turn the camera on yourself, start to talk, become a brand. There's the future's super exciting.
D, thoughts?
It's a good one. I have thoughts.
Please go.
I like corollaries. Holding companies, you mentioned this, Noel, when they were at their zenith, they had multiple brands that they either bought or built. And the holding company was in the background. It was the brands that were known. And you had 3 different types of parts of the industry and disciplines that were the lead in any brand. Some brands are creatively driven. Some brands are account planning, account management driven, and other brands are strategy and planning driven. Each of these different brands has a lead. One would argue Wyden was more creative driven. One would say McCann back in the day, account management driven. So some might say that Saatchi was more strategy planning driven. You can debate, but they were brands. The holding companies were in the background. Now you hear things like WPP Creative. What they're trying to do is create a new brand, WPP, the holding company, and turn that into a B2B facing brand. And I think they're going in the wrong direction. And here's my corollary. It's kind of like Hollywood. In Hollywood, you have these major studios that no one cared about. They cared about the brand called the movie. They didn't care that it came from MGM or from 20th Century. They just cared, what's the movie, the brand. And then another rung down in Hollywood is like, even if you won't dig in the movie, you dig the star of the movie. These are the influencers, the stars now. And so you ask what's going to happen next. I believe the holding companies are going the wrong direction. The direction they need to go to are the stars. This is why Diageo followed you around. No, you're a star. So they're going after the stars that can actually give them the ideas. CAA is a talent agency. They are dealing with the stars. They had the power. They're going to have the power. And until the holding companies start to wake up to the fact that they need to be taking care of the stars and growing those brands, they're going to lose. That's my point of view.
I love that, DC. You'll appreciate this. The first time I stepped on the campus at Meta in Palo Alto, it was a long time ago, like maybe 2015. I lined up to get a really great breakfast and a coffee all for free, and was walking off to my meeting, and I phoned my wife and I said, she'd just woken up on the East Coast, and I said to her, "Baby, we're in the right business. We're just in the wrong part of it." I was like,
Yes,
right. We're in advertising and marketing, but like these guys there's something here that they're doing that I don't really, at the time I was like, there's a lot of money here and they're making a lot of money. I don't know what it is. Some sort of weird contraption flying around this campus with free food and Starbucks. It's like they're doing something right,
Yeah. I'd like to chime in on here. I think
Please,
everything you guys are saying is really right on. I'll also add to this, D. We've had this conversation a lot, Noel, on the show. And this goes to regular companies, whether they're B2C or B2B. Most companies, as DC was alluding to, in the agency side, they're account driven or they're creative driven or strategy driven. Just like companies, many of them are finance driven or sales driven, right?
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
marketing driven. And what these holding companies are doing, it sounds like the finance people are taking over because they just see an opportunity to cut costs, and they're not understanding how that relevancy plays out to clients. And at the end of the day, look, Noel, your career is symbolic of what I'm going to say. At the end of the day, as DC alluded to, when you're a client, and we're consultants, but we always think of ourselves as clients, Noel, because once having stewarded brands, you always think that way. You're always looking for the best creative partners. DC said this in his intro, right? And so no matter where they are, we don't care if that becomes political. Like when in the Coke universe, when we had to be with all, the McCann-oriented shops, right? IPG and whatnot. And then Pepsi's with all, BBDO and their clan. But at the end of the day, if you're a great steward of a brand, you want to have creative partners. And if they're with folks like Murder Hornet, even better, because it cuts away the bullshit that you can then just, work singularly with people who can be great creative partners. And they're missing the boat here because what all they're doing is opening up huge opportunities for folks like yourself who are going to then have more of these creative stars that you're able to bring into your universe and then provide the clients with what they're going to ultimately need. So that's the way I think of it. It's something that's always been done about, these holding companies buying and selling, but ultimately it's about the people who are best at the creative side and really helping steward these brands forward in a big way, like you've done.
Oh, thanks, Larry. I love that. And just the last thing to mention is, which we haven't hit on at all, is media. I think one of the big moments where everything changed was when media and creative split up, and because the money was always in the media. Like, so
that's right.
Those big companies were sitting there with like all the media and creative. The creative was a loss leader. It was the sexy stuff to get the clients in the door, but they made all their money on media. And the moment those big holding companies were like, we're creating just a giant big media company over here, and we're going to keep these poor creative shops trying to make money over here. They just, I think that's another reason that they are struggling. It's because the model was made on we're going to give away our creative and we're going to make all our money on media. And the moment those things split, I think we all know that was like one of the big moments where now creative agencies are trying to make money on their own, basically billing like a lawyer, like an hourly rate. And that's never going to work.
Back to the old 15% of media days, back way
That's
back
the dream.
in the day. That's right. Yeah.
This is an actual Japanese murder hornet, gents.
Oh, awesome. Super cool. The folks on YouTube could see that. That's awesome. All right. Cool. Well, Noel, this has been amazing, truly amazing. This is our time to sort of posit our learnings. These shows go way too fast when we have amazing guests like you. So I have some great learnings here I'm going to share. So number one, brand nerds, as Noel did in his early 20s, when you're living your life at that point in your life, just live your life, but then also be open and conscious of what may be calling you. As DC said, recognize. And that's what Noel did. So no matter what point in your life, be conscious. Think about what's around you. Opportunity could be right there at the next coffee you're going to. Who knows? That's number one. Number two, Sissy Boy Jeans, brand nerds, is the ultimate example of what we talk about a lot on this show of sacrifice. Sissy Boy Jeans was not trying to sell any jeans to any dude. And they were trying to sell those jeans to women and a certain kind of woman. And the emotional connection then happened because they understood that in a big way. So that's number two. Number three, to be a great client, and there's two things that become uber important to be a great client. One of them we talked about, one of them we did not. We think of Ronald Sassoon, again, with Sissy Boy Jeans, to be brave like Ronald. You got to be brave. And then also, you can't just be brave, but you also have to know what you want. And when you're working with really great creative people like Noel, you've got to give really smart, concise, cogent direction. You're brave and you give that cogent, smart direction, you're going to get great results like they did with Sissy Boy Jeans. Number four, like Noel does in life, brand nerds, be curious and go forward with that learning orientation. And I got two more. Number five, like Noel did so eloquently with his F up. Own your F up like Noel and really own it and apologize as part of owning it. And then the last one, brand nerds, and this is an overall one. If you can live your life with forgiveness, yeah, you're going to get mad at people and things are going to happen in your life. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when you have connections with people, that's most important. So live your life with forgiveness and expel all the bitterness. Those are my learnings, and they're great, Noel. Thank you.
I love that, Larry. Thanks so much. Yeah, it was a great summary. Thank you.
Really.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been an absolute
we're
pleasure
not done
to be
yet,
on.
brother. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. We got a little bit more to
DC's
go.
turn.
All good, all good.
At this stage of the program, I make an attempt, no. The attempt is to articulate to the brand nerds, and more importantly to you, what it is I think that you have offered and are offering us in the world that of the 8 billion people that are now here, we wouldn't be getting in the same way that we get it from you. If you weren't giving it to us, we would not get it. It's difficult for me when we have guests on the podcast that I know. I have to take back anything that I know and go, open canvas, clean. What is no painting for me to notice? And I'm going to tell you what I believe you've painted for me. In the Get Comfy section, you talked about going to the meeting with one of the Saatchi brothers. You were a kid, no? There are some people that might have been dating a person who said, I want you to go meet one of the Saatchis. And you might have been like, well, is it your mom? Is it your dad? Is it your family? Well, then I don't know that I want to go, but you went.
Yes.
Once you get into Saatchi and you see that green painted wall and these creatives who are dressed up in proper tennis gear going up against the wall with a tennis ball, you're like, oh, I think this is it for me. It's a little problem, though. You are not there legally. And they are asking you, oh, hey, no, can you give us your number? Can you give us something so we know you're good? And you never gave it up, but you never stopped going. Meeting the Saatchi, as well as staying in the game so you could get your little case, that took you being brave. When you answered the first question about your first branding experience, to what Larry alluded, you talk about Sissy Boy Jeans, Karma Sutra, a pornography full middle page multiple spread ad with a naked man. By the way, there's a theme happening here on the whole Karma Sutra stuff, but we won't get into that. You and your creative partner had to be brave to even bring that to your client. I know your client gave you a great brief. Ronald Sassoon gave you a great brief. To meet and exceed that brief took you being brave. When we ask you who is having the most influence on your career, you'd already mentioned some of the folks that you worked with earlier, but you talked about Alex. You called her over. And here Alex is recognized as one of the 30 under 30. It was brave of you to say, I'm going to partner on a brand new firm, and most firms don't make it, with a person who is significantly younger and has significantly less experience than I do in this business. That was brave. When we ask you about your biggest F up, you talked about Dave Fitzgerald Fitz, and you apologized publicly. You got to be brave to apologize publicly. When we ask you about technology, you talked about the nest and the swarm that you have. Nest, 10, 12 people, swarm of 1,000. And you specifically mentioned creative violence is what you all believe in. I'm thinking about all of that, Noel and LT, and I'm like, all of this bravery stuff and creative violence. And then I thought about the name of your company, Murder Hornet. So I went and looked up. Of all of the hornets, what species is the bravest? Now, this is before you raised up the Japanese. This is before you raised this up. It is the Asian giant hornet, otherwise known as Vespa mandarinia. And here is how it's described, why people would say it's the bravest of all of the hornets. It's large, 1.5 to 2 inches long. It can coordinate group attacks on bee colonies. All right.
Holding companies.
Colonies, yes. It uses powerful jaws to kill prey quickly. And finally, it says, colonies defend their nest fiercely and won't hesitate to confront much larger animals if threatened.
Love that.
So what I believe you are, my brother, is you are the Vespa mandarinia of creative ideas. That's what you are, brother. You are the Asian giant. There we go.
Noel's showing up showing it up to us right on the screen.
Oh, okay. Now, and by the way, he's showing it on the screen with the Asian. So he's showing me I had already written this down before you showed that. That's you, brother. That's you.
Thank you, man. Thanks, DC. It's really great, and thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate this and appreciate the run back through memory lane, and also a little look into the future. Chatting about Alex and chatting about the AI stuff and how we're using it and what we're planning to do. So it felt like a look back and a look forward, and it was really exciting. Thanks so much.
That's the best conversations. Conversations. No, you were amazing. We're gonna hit the show close now. Brand Nerds, thanks so much.
Hey, Larry, can I just do two things, brother, before we get out of here? Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
The first, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Brand Nerds, Noel and I are girl dads. I've got 3 daughters. I think Noel 2.
Yeah.
Yep, 2. And our each of us has a daughter. His daughter is Sasha. My daughter is Lauren. They're besties. And I'd be remiss if I did not say that I am really happy that my daughter Lauren gets to have a bestie in your daughter Sasha, because I know the cloth from which she is cut. So I want to say that.
Thank you,
here.
Sir.
You're welcome, brother. And then
goes both ways.
No, say it again. No, I didn't hear you.
Goes both ways, DC. Same there.
Thank you, brother. And then finally, before we go to the show close, is what did you get out of this, if anything, this discussion you've had with us?
So yeah, I mean, thanks, DC. I mean, and honestly, I think it was a really great exercise because Jade, your producer, hit me up with the questions yesterday to prepare a little bit, and I spent the night thinking about them, and then kind of coming in and talking to you guys about them. Definitely took like some different turns from what I thought we were going to be chatting about, and I purposefully, I knew I'd get emotional about the Dave Fitzgerald thing because like when you're effed up, it's emotional. It's not something that's there, and I I felt that emotion. I think when the brand nerds see it, they'll feel it. They're like, it's real. And so it was a really special conversation with people that I like, DC, that I've known for you, and someone who's been really great and part of my career. And I just want to say thanks, a huge thanks. I could not have had more fun doing this.
Great, thanks, Noel. Sorry, Larry. I just wanted to give a little space for that.
I'm glad you gave the space. That's perfect. That's a much better ending. So brand nerds, thanks so much for listening to Brands, Beats, and Bytes. The executive producers of Brands, Beats, and Bytes are Jeff Shirley, Daryl DC Cobbin, Larry Taman, Jay Tate, and Tom Dioro.
The Podfather.
That is he. And if you do like this podcast, please subscribe and share. And for those on Apple Podcasts, if you are so inclined, we love those excellent reviews. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. And we look forward to next time, where we will have more insightful and enlightening talk about marketing.